Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Good morning, Vietnam!
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
I wish I knew how to quit you.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
You do. You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
What up, film fans? Happy Thursday. Welcome to a bonus episode of the Cine-En Movie Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Juan, and I am joined by the cast and crew, Ed.
Hey, how's it going, folks?
And we are joined by a special guest. We are privileged to have Mr. Damian Chapa is here. Sir, how are you?
It's so great to be here, and thank you for inviting me. And I just want to say something you might not have heard in a long time, but Vatos Locos forever.
That's what I'm talking about, man. It's good to hear that. Good to hear that voice, man. We're so glad and honored that you are joined us. You will be here live and in person this Sunday in Oklahoma City, August the 4th, 2024, from 3 to 5, with the location at the Wyndham Garden, Oklahoma City Airport, Magnolia Meeting Room, this Sunday in Oklahoma City at 2101 South Meridian Avenue, right here in Oklahoma City. Man, privileged to have you on, man. How excited are you to be here this weekend?
Well, I tell you, Oklahoma is such a beautiful place for me because it's one of the first meet and greets I did, I don't know, years ago. And it was incredible, because I've been in Europe filming a lot. I do a lot of my art films in Europe. A lot of people don't know I do a lot of art films, and now they're going to the festivals a lot, and then I come back to do shows like FBI's Most Wanted. And, I'm really lucky to have a career that continues as an actor, but as a filmmaker, I do these films that are in Europe a lot. And so when I come back in to do meet and greets, I come into Oklahoma, and every single time I come here, there's this long line of loyal fans that it just amazes me how loyal people are in Oklahoma for the movie Blood In, Blood Out. It's incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
Man, yeah, you have such an amazing career, not only spanning back to Blood In, Blood Out, but a lot of, like you said earlier, some of your recent meet and greets. There's a long list of Street Fighter fans that also know you for Street Fighter. But man, first off, thank you again for this interview, and we'll start off with the first question. If you don't mind talking about how did you get started in, not just the movie business in general, but just the entertainment business?
Well, it all started for me in New York, where I grew up. I was born in Ohio, spent my childhood in Ohio, Dayton, and then Columbus later on, in a little tiny city called Gahanna. And then I moved from there in my teens and 20s and 30s. My formative years, they were in New York City, Lower East Side, 14th Street and Avenue A. A lot of people remember me from there. I lived there for a while. Then I lived Midtown. Then at one point I got lucky and I got Uptown for a little while, but it was only for a couple of months. It's so expensive up there. And then I'd go back down to do theater, and, for example, places like the 18th Street Playhouse. That's really where my career as an actor started, and little off what they call off Broadway. And then this place was not only off, it was off Broadway, but, they were little theaters, places I worked in as an actor to kind of hone my craft, to get it down and to learn, to get exposure in front of people and getting rid of the fear, because it takes a lot. People see actors on film and they see them do this work, but to do work in front of a live audience is a really, really difficult thing. And, it's not just nerve-wracking when you're starting. You have to be really dedicated to your work. You have to memorize all these lines. And that's where it started for me, theater in New York City. And wow. For me, that's my foundation as an actor, is theater. And I really loved doing theater. And it started me off on my path. And then at one point, it's kind of funny because I finally got a job, my first kind of like movie, music, video job. It was actually my first real job, because the theaters, I actually had to pay them to do the work. So wow. I was paying them like $85 a week to be, in these plays. That's how I start, and then I got a call from an agent, and one of the actors that they wanted to come on this music video, his name was Ray. But anyway, Ray had a little bit of a problem. He couldn't make it. And so they said, well, look, can you make it? And I said, well, I was excited. I go, what is it? Is it an audition? What is it? They said, no, you got the job already. I said, well, really? Well, what is it? They said, well, you know Madonna, right? I said, yeah, of course I know Madonna. Back then, she was like the biggest thing in the early 80s, right?
Mhm.
And I was so excited. I was thinking, I'm going to get in a music video with it. They said, well, you're going to be a stand-in for the actor. Hey, $150 a day. I said, I'll take it. So
Oh yeah.
I met Madonna. I met a lot of people through her. And, you know, that's how it really started for me to meet connections and all that. She was pretty much my door opener with the, you know, the so-called limelight of New York and then later on Hollywood. I was a stand-in. That was my first job. And then I went, this guy came backstage. He was looking for an actor for a movie. And I was doing one of the plays, and he came back. His name was Randy Pike. And he said, he came backstage after my play, says, you know what? I think you're a really good actor. And he says, I want you to play, you know, James Dean, but you're going to have to screen test. So it was a movie going around, and the other one was being done by Leonardo DiCaprio. Warner Brothers was going to put him in it. And the one that was sanctioned by the family was called James Dean the Legend, which I was going to star in. I was the only sanctioned actor by the family to play the actor James Dean. So I went, I did the screen. They flew me out to California. I did the screen test, and I got the part. I was going to play James Dean. My career was set. Leonardo DiCaprio dropped out of the other one. I was set. I was going to be the only one to play James Dean. And then one day I got a knock on the door. You know, I haven't told many people this story. I was going to play him, and I got a knock on the door. The guy says, you know, you got the part, but the problem is we're not going to be able to do the movie. I said, what happened? He says, the producers all got assassinated at a stoplight in Culver City. So there was a hit put on these producers. And I haven't told that story to anyone, except for personal people. But that's how my career started. I went from playing James Dean, big movie, $1 million project, to sweeping floors in the same studio the next week. So, you know, it was struggle after struggle. And then finally I got an audition for Blood In, Blood Out.
Everything happens for a reason, though, man. That's what we like to try to say, you know.
Yes, sir. So going from there, getting into the business and all that, of course, you've got people you probably love to work with. Who would be one that you is like one of your top or favorite or whatever have you people that you've worked with that you want to either work with again or just like continuing working with?
Well, you know, there was a person I've worked with so many people, you know, Van Damme and Seagal and all these kind of action heroes, you know. I've worked with all of them, and Chuck Norris. You know, it's funny, I've worked with all three of those guys.
Wow.
And you know, people ask me all the time, you know, about those action stars. But I've also got a lot of chances to work with really talented people like Michael Ocho Torrena. He's an up-and-coming actor, really great actor and Mexican-American actor. And then, you know, I loved working with Danny Trejo, man. He's just he's one of my favorite people, you know, Danny. He's always been there for me. He's always been such a stand-up guy for me. And, you know, people like him and, you know, even Jesse Borrego when we did Blood In, Blood Out. He was, to me, Jesse is probably one of the best actors and not as sung as he should be in Hollywood. I think he should have got an Academy Award for Blood In, Blood Out. That's my opinion. You know, but my opinion doesn't mean much. But he was so damn brilliant in that movie, Blood In, Blood Out. Jesse Borrego, he's one of my favorite actors. And that performance was incredible. Then I got a chance to work with Kylie Minogue. I think she's actually a better actress than people think she is. She hasn't worked much as an actress, more of a singer. But I loved working with her in Street Fighter. And Rod Steiger, he worked with Brando. He started with Brando. He's passed away now. Faye Dunaway was a great actress to work with. A lot of people I've got a chance to work with. Oh, you know, two of the people I really loved working with, which I didn't mention yet. My son Luke, he really loves this Chucky series, you know. Like everywhere I look, I see something with Chucky in my house now. I'm like, I woke up one day, I got scared. I looked over, there's Chucky looking back at me. I said, I'm a more of a dramatic actor. I love drama. I love this art film. That's who I truly am. And of course, I got to play in Blood In, Blood Out. But this Chucky thing has taken over America, right? And my son loves it. And he says, Dad, I heard you work with Chucky. I was thinking, what's he talking about? I never worked with Chucky. And he said, no, Brad Dourif does the voice of Chucky. And I said, yes, son, I did 3 movies with Brad. He was in El Padrino with me. I directed him in that and starred in with him. And also Jennifer Tilly. So my son was so taken because he's getting, he's in his 20s now. He's like, Dad, you got to work with both Chucky and Chucky's wife. Yep. I think girlfriend, was she married to him in that? Those 2 people were wonderful actors, and their career took off with all these, TV shows. Those are 2 great actors, Jennifer Tilly and Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif actually is probably one of my favorite actors that I got a chance to work with.
Cool. I know you're a busy man, so I'm gonna finish and get the last 2 questions to you. But what's your favorite top 5 movies if you had to pick your top 5 list?
Well, I know that playing in Blood In, Blood Out was a great. As an actor, you couldn't ask for a better role as an actor. I really enjoyed not only being in that film, but watching that film. To me, it's quite an interesting piece. It's so long that, but it's so interesting. The characters, there's so many great characters in a movie, and some people might have false humility and say, well, I don't want to list that in one of my top 5 movies, but it is one of my top 5 movies not because I'm in it, but because I enjoy the work that was done by all the cast members. And it just was a film that I think lives on for a reason. So I'd have to say that one. And then also going off on another part of me, which, a lot of people don't, I'm very artistic. A lot of the films I do, like I just did a movie called Last Kiss in Paris. It's with Olga Kent, a really great actress, and produced by Patricia Robinson, who's a wonderful, actually Texas producer who's really helped me a lot with that. And one of my associate producers, Luis Memo Gonzalez, they helped me with that film a lot. And that film for me was a great film to work on. It was about a woman who had schizophrenia, who was in a mental institution and fell in love with a New York poet. That's another film I enjoyed working on and loved myself to watch. But films outside of my own work, I would have to say, I'm not sure if you've seen the film Amadeus.
Yes.
Before. To me, I love Amadeus because Amadeus has this thing, of course, Mozart was one of the greatest artists who ever lived, but his work was really embodied with, I think Tom Holtz for sure got robbed of an Academy Award with that film. They gave it to F. Murray Abraham, who, by the way, did a great job. He was stupendous, but I think that Tom Holtz was absolutely brilliant in that film. I could watch that film over and over again because it does what film is supposed to do. It takes you away from reality, and it puts you in this world that you just, you're like in an alpha trance when you're watching films like that. And then, of course, Apocalypse Now by
Francis Ford Coppola.
Francis Ford, and then Brando, of course, was magnificent in that. And I love films like that are epic and grandiose, and just the courage it takes to make a film like that. Look, I've done a lot of movies, and I can tell you, anybody, if there's a kid that comes to me and says, a lot of times it happens at my meet and greets, they say, hey, I did this film last week, and I don't just say, okay, good job, all right, okay, I got to go. I look at them and say, did you finish it? And they say, yeah, I actually finished it. How long is it? It's 70 minutes long. And I look at them and I say, you know what? What an incredible thing that you did. To make a movie at any level is so difficult. And I admire anyone who can finish a movie because I know the difficulty, how much it takes, the energy and the love and the artistic endeavor to do it. So,
for me, any movie that's finished is a great feat.
That's awesome.
I love that answer, man. And movies are huge for us. They're, like you said, they are an escape of reality. They tell a great story, and I couldn't agree more on Amadeus or we just did an episode Apocalypse Now. Yeah, we just talked about that a few weeks ago. I'm gonna go ahead and ask, man, the last question, and this has got to do with Blood In, Blood Out. So, what life would Miklo have if he had managed to stay straight after being released in the film? That first in that first part of him being released. What do you?
Well, that's a good question. It's so funny. It reminds me when I was, like I told you, in New York when I grew up. I spent a lot of time I met everybody there. Andy Warhol, you name it. I was around everybody. And I was really fortunate to meet so many great artists. And I actually got a chance. I was hanging out with this really pretty aristocrat. And Victoria Vicuña was her name, a really beautiful woman and a very elegant lady. And she was kind of showing me the ropes of what it was like to be uptown. And she says, "How would you like to meet a very special star?" And I says, "Well, who is it?" He says, "Well, we're having dinner at Indochine." And Indochine was this beautiful Vietnamese restaurant that everybody in New York went to in the 80s. And she says, "Well, I'm going to have you sit across our special guest." And I go sit there and I'm thinking, who's this going to be? Who's this guest she's bringing? And all of a sudden, this group that's sitting on the other side sits down. And lo and behold, who sits across from me? Mick Jagger. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. The Stones were everything for a kid my age back then. They were it. So I got a chance to talk to Mick, and I'll tell you why this reminds me of your question. I was talking to Mick, and we were, you talk about each other's lives and this and that, and I was just so enamored because I love his music. And I asked him, what was it like before you were a movie star? I should say rock star. And he goes, I was going to be an accountant. Can you imagine Mick Jagger being an accountant, right? But that's the kind of thing that happens to people. It's like, what would happen to Miklo? It's like he's in prison. He's finding his way to fit in with the Chicano community that he loves so much, which is similar to me. My father's Mexican American with also some Italian roots. And my mother was white, like in the movie was opposite. But, it's like my mother was Irish, redhead, and a really beautiful lady. But, what you become, what would you have done? The road not traveled, who knows what happened? I mean, Miklo was a smart guy, maybe not me, but his character was intelligent. He was an intelligent guy just looking to fit in. If he didn't have that insecurity of trying to fit into a community like he did, which is his whole life, his whole battle was just trying to be accepted.
Yep.
If he didn't have that insecurity, which, by the way, stems from his childhood, like all of us have our problems from childhood, he might have been somebody great, could even have been a politician. He might have gone on to get educated and worked in the community, and he could even have been a president. Who knows? Because, Miklo had a drive, which I like to say I put through this, I inserted in his character, because I have a drive. One thing you have to know yourself. A lot of actors and artists and they're trying to do things, but you got to know what you're good at and you got to stick with it. Yep. And you can't give it up. I know it's this old cliche, don't give up, but you really can't. The rejection in the film movie world, the rejection in the music world, the rejection in the art world, it's so severe that it takes a real hardened person to keep coming back for more until you hit, And I think that's what, Miklo had. He had the drive, and so, instead of being the leader of the Mexican, I should say La Onda,
yep.
He might have been, a politician or maybe even a great engineer. He could have been anything,
Yeah,
what do you guys think? What do you guys think he would have been?
Man, honestly, I think he might have probably followed with Paco, honestly, and maybe join the Marines or just join the military or something.
Maybe went on a good path.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing with making movies like this. I'm so proud of this film. because I think it touched the Chicano community. And by the way, I get off on a plane and I go to Europe and I go to Spain, I go to Italy, I go to France, I go anywhere people know this film. But when you go to a place called Sweden, and everybody, everybody there is white as rice. You get off on the plane and there's no Chicanos there. Well, maybe a few, but it's like you get these people come up and say, "Oh, Miklo, vatos locos forever," and it's so funny how this Mexican cultural film touched the world.
It did,
it's
man.
fascinating. But I think the reason why it did. And I think Vatos Locos and the family thing resonates with everybody. It's about family and knowing that you can, no matter what, every family has a guy that, maybe went bad, or maybe this guy's a cop, maybe this guy's a doctor. But you're connected by blood and family, That's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, man. One of my favorite movies of all time. That's why I was a little star-strutted getting you on this episode, getting you on this podcast. Favorite movies. It's top 5 up there with The Godfather and The Dark Knight for me. Being half Hispanic and half white, I still, to this day, my name badge says Juan, and I still get, "You don't look like a Juan," and I'm like, it kind of irritates me sometimes, but I always think back, man, this movie helped me out a lot, and this movie means so much to me, and this interview and this whole project means so much to me. So I can't wait. I'm glad you're going to come to Oklahoma City and hang out and talk with the locals here. The meet and greet again is this Sunday, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, August 4th, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. at the Wyndham Garden, Oklahoma City Airport, in the Magnolia Meeting Room, 2101 South Meridian Avenue, Oklahoma City. You don't want to miss it. Meet and greet with yours truly, Damian Chapa from Blood In, Blood Out. Man, is there anything else you want to add before you start your busy weekend?
Well, I want to thank you guys for bringing me on, and it's a wonderful interview. Great questions. And I tell you, anyone out there looking to make film nowadays, there's no excuse. Anybody can get a camera and anybody can start. You've got to do it. Don't make films to make money. Make films because you love doing it, and it will someday reward you.
Hell yeah. That's
deep words.
Goosebumps, man. Awesome word, man. Thank you for joining us. That's it for this interview, man. Thank you. If there's one thing also, Damian, you're listening to the Cine-En Movie Podcast, right?
Yes, let's do this. You're listening to the Cine-En Movie Podcast. What? Let me do it again. Hold on a second. I think the girl who wrote this put that in there by accident, or maybe it was a joke on me. Okay, I'll do it again. Sorry, guys.
You're good.
Okay, here we go. You're listening to the Cine-En Movie Podcast. Damian Chapa, Vatos Locos Forever.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.